Hello, and thank you, ChiCommons, for inviting us to speak. Tonight, we're going to talk about how Hack Night hatched a co-op, which is ChiCommons Cooperative. We are ChiCommons Cooperative, a worker-owned and multi-stakeholder cooperative. And tonight, we're going to, tonight we have a flight plan. We're going to cover our foundation, who, why, and who we are, our formation, what and when we got started, our flight, what we're up to and where we're flying to today, and our future, where we're headed in the future. So we're a cooperative. What are cooperatives? In 1844, the Rochdale Pioneer Society, one of the first cooperatives to go by that name, came up with 7 principles of cooperativeness. And those were then adopted by the International Cooperative Alliance, the summit body of cooperatives around the world today. Cooperatives believe in voluntary and open membership. Anybody can join. The next 2 principles demark what it is to be a co-op versus what it is to be a corporation or a private company. In co-ops, every member has 1 vote and only 1 vote. And every member contributes an equal amount to capitalize the co-op. In corporations, typically a small group of investors has lots of money and puts that money in and then gets a lot of votes for the money that they've invested. So co-ops are a little bit more level than corporations are in terms of participation. Co-ops practice autonomy and independence to the extent that we can. We believe in training and educating our members and operating transparently. Principle 6, as we refer to it, cooperation amongst cooperatives, means that we really give preference to cooperatives. For instance, ChiCommons has a consultancy and we serve the business community, but we give our best price rates to the cooperative and solidarity community. And finally, we care for our community. So those are the 7 principles. There are many different forms of co-ops. The largest co-ops are farmers co-ops, like Land O'Lakes and Ocean Spray. Did you know that those were cooperatives? There are producer co-ops. There are consumer cooperatives, food cooperatives, worker cooperatives, that are owned and operated by the workers, and multi-stakeholder cooperatives. We are a multi-stakeholder cooperative because we incorporate a lot of these different owner classes. The co-op movement is part of a larger economy called the solidarity economy, which is a global movement to build a just and sustainable economy. We've been working on defining the dimensions and the definitions of a solidarity economy so that we could go have conversations and come to consensus about the solidarity economy with other solidarity economy entities. But what we've identified as dimensions are ujima, social welfare and outcomes over power and profits. We value what matters most to people and the planet. We try to be inclusive and give a place at the table for every voice and try to ensure that those voices are heard and that they're heard in a safe space so that everybody can feel free to participate. The solidarity economy is a worldwide economy, and as such, there are a lot of different implementations, and so one size does not necessarily fit all, but we all share some central principles. Finally, we believe in empowering people so that we all flourish together. So what about ChiCommons? Who are we and how do we get started? I'm Steve Ediger. I moved to Chicago 8 years ago this month in 2013 and got immediately involved with Chi Hack Night. It was the first organization that I joined when I got to Chicago. But then I joined a few other organizations. One is the Chicago Sustainability Leaders Network and Connect Chicago, which was a project of the Smart Chicago Collaborative. where I met Alvin Walker and Nurul Yousafzai. Then a little bit later on in Chi-Hack Knight's evolution, the FCC was considering abandoning net neutrality, and a lot of people were concerned about that. And so we established a group called Mesh Up the Internet. And I think Joel and Derek were both involved in that. And at that point, Dave Alvarado and Jonathan Rogoff joined us. Later on, that group did get transformed into ChiCommons. And at that point, Chuck Lay, Felipe Mitchell, and Elve Virtus joined us. And then we had a series of events, and the last of those events was a culmination event for us where we formed ChiCommons as a formal cooperative. And Mike Strode and Emily Ray joined us then. And then this year we picked up 2 new owners, Candace Bush and Barry Feldman, who's not displayed here. So that's sort of who we are and how we got together. So why did we create ChiCommons? Well, we believe in equity and inclusion. We want to provide sustainable digital communications for everybody, internet connections for everyone. We want to offer cooperatives as a different way of organizing our value exchange. And we practice asset-based community development as opposed to figuring deficits in the community. We come in and map a community's assets and build off of that. It's a much healthier place to start. We also want to provide a living beyond traditional jobs. To that end, we've created a consultancy where we go out and do jobs for commercial rates in the commercial market. And finally, we want to use digital technology to build platform cooperatives as community service. Our mission is to cooperatively foster and grow a people-owned solidarity economy. And we envision empowered, integrated, equitable, cooperative, and solidarity economies across the Chicago region that are connected globally. I'll turn it over to Alvin to talk about our formation.
Thank you, Steve. Alvin Walker, one of the ChiCommons worker owners. And I'll be talking about our when, as far as our formation goes. So if you look at our timeline here, this gives you an idea of when everything that was critical to our forming took place. So one of the things on a particular journey that's important is that there are key events that take place. There are invaluable alliances that are formed, and there are critical initiatives that are implemented that make organizations like ours a reality. And so one of those projects that we talked about before, our map, was greatly aided by an initiative launched by Shareable, which during a particular timeline created a sharing cities map. And this map was used as a way to highlight and celebrate cooperative organizations. And those were part of the data that we used in a Chi-Hack Night volunteer group and integrated it into what became the first iteration of the map. Another project that we took into our fold was our BlockShare efforts. And here are some of these examples. As you can see here, we have our Connect Chicago initiative, which is sponsored by the city. We had the launch of a community Wi-Fi hub at Windsor Park Evangelical Lutheran Church in Chicago. That happened through a partnership between Leave No Veteran Behind and Cambium Networks. And then we had some community events that helped to catalyze our efforts in BlockShare. But then there were some setbacks. We had the FCC repealing of the net neutrality law. And but that didn't stop us because we knew that this type of work required community level engagement. So we have 2 community technology events, both held at the church in South Shore, and discussions centered around how could technology help to bring about the lack of equity in underserved communities. And so organizations like the Chicago Sustainability Leaders Network and Chi Hack Night were instrumental in that conversation. They co-sponsored that particular event, and the discussion turned to a question which was raised by one of the breakout group members as to where would he be able to tell people that he had too many tomatoes. The old idea about asset-based community development once again raised its head. And so this particular conversation spun off into what did become BlockShare as a neighborhood Wi-Fi alternative. We are also at this time were beginning to formulate what ChiCommons as a cooperative would look like. And so in 2019, we were able to have that first conversation with another group of conveners at the church. And then in March of 2020, we formed as a cooperative. On the next slide, we will talk about the projects that got us started. Next slide, please. In the first graphic here, you see that we have the first iteration of the cooperative map. And once again, kudos to Shareable in that effort that it took to map what they phrased at the time as the new economy. This version has over 500 entities listed, and most of them are in Chicago. We also have a photo to the right of the antenna for the community Wi-Fi hub located at Windsor Park Lutheran Church. It receives a signal from a Museum of Science and Industry antenna, and then it broadcasts it within a 300-foot radius of the church. This is also aided by a repeater antenna located on the rooftop of a local restaurant, which is about 1 block away. This concludes my portion of the presentation, and I will pass it on to Nurul for the next iteration.
Thank you, Alvin. This is Nurul Yusufzai, one of the ChiCommons cooperative co-founders. Good evening, everybody. So in addition to the pro bono projects that you saw, the question arose, how do we sustain ourselves while doing these good things? Volunteering as well, it's good. We're all doing it as Chi Hack Night participants. But how do we make it last? How do we serve the community via our pro bono projects? But also leverage our prior business technology and people skills of the group that would form a consulting practice that we would charge paying clients, but also generate income for worker owners and subsidize our pro bono projects. So the answer to that is another item on the timeline that Alvin mentioned, which is the Limited Worker Cooperative Association Act passed by the Illinois legislature and signed by the governor in 2019. Many state activists statewide pushed to modernize Illinois' co-op laws, which were last fully addressed in the 20th century. And we took effort to form as a Limited Worker Cooperative Association in March of 2020. Next slide, please. Being a new legal entity form, it's not something that, quote unquote, you can try at home. So we took flight with a little help from our friends. One of the main friends was the John Marshall Law School Community Enterprise and Solidarity Economy Clinic, which is a pro bono great legal clinic, which a lot of the activists who push for the cooperative law are on staff at the law school. They helped us incorporate. We also worked with the Illinois Secretary of State's office to be incorporated as a cooperative and leverage the funds of our initial group of worker and consumer owners to get started. Used our friendly neighborhood local credit union, the Great Lakes Credit Union of Illinois, as our bank. Worked with Deanna Franklin of Attune Design, another friend of Shy Hack Night, to get our visual identity. And because we believe in diversifying technology and technology base, looking beyond the Microsoft and Google duopoly for our Office suite, and looked at some other tools, namely the global software as a service company, Zoho. Next slide, please. The other part of taking flight is building up the nest, right? So no sooner than we incorporated, which was March 2020, COVID happened. We all know the outcomes of that and the consequences. So a new friend that we made was Zoom. We acquired Zoom at our own expense and used it to help us develop our communication for internal routines, develop a cadence beyond the Tuesday night Shy Hack Night breakout that we started with. We discovered that we needed other weekly routines and indeed monthly routines and annual routines just to do the work that any startup needs to do. We also use the work time to refine our mission and vision statements that you saw earlier. And to actually operationalize these cooperative principles, we use some tools used in industry and technology, namely the Kanban board, which you see an example of, a screenshot up there, which is a dynamic to-do board that you can do in person or you can do it online. We happen to use the Zoho Sprints tool to do that, very similar to other Kanban boards, all the while continuing our Shy Hack Night presence and including the great volunteer work that our folks have done to iterate on the cooperative and solidarity economy map that Alvin alluded to, that I'll show you the next iteration of in a second. The other aspect of it, building up a consulting practice. So we have a sub-brand that we call ChiCommons Consulting, and acquired some clients. Very tough to prospect for new business during a pandemic, but we did find some, and we're grateful for the business, as well as building the cash flow that any enterprise needs to succeed. And probably most importantly, the courage to adjust is needed, because nothing goes as you originally planned in any new enterprise. Next slide, please. So actually premiering tonight, this is a screenshot of our, what we call MAP 3.0. So the initial 500 entities, we've deepened and broadened the entity types that are put on the map, the various community assets, cooperatives, and other resources. It is integrated with the website, but it's actually, it's a distinct product, and it's database driven. We're in a position to crowdsource the map entities and the data entry with validation and curation by the ChiCommons team. And we refined our model for volunteer engagement using the aforementioned Zoho Sprints, and of course GitHub, which everybody knows and uses. Next slide, please. What you'll see there is an aerial diagram of the next iteration of the BlockShare Community Internet pilot. So expanding the South Shore Wi-Fi presence beyond the initial antenna from the Windsor Park Lutheran Church, acquiring more users to sort of field test some of the technical and conceptual aspects of the service, as well as deepening the relationships with the church and the community as we figure out what does it mean to have a neighborhood scale, locally owned and operated intranet. And Felipe will talk about our future plans.
Thank you, Nurul. Appreciate that greatly for that overview that of where we have flown and whom we have flown with. Good evening, I'm Felipe, he, him, el, another ChiCommons worker owner. With all that, you may wonder, what's next? Where is ChiCommons headed? Well, we intend to expand the Cooperative and Solidarity Map app. We're adding more co-ops and solidarity entities from Cook and collar counties to the map, expanding from our Chicago base. We are continuing to develop our map application and explore it for entities and customers to connect with. Interconnecting entities all the more for synergy. Elevating our map and app to the next dimension, the exciting innovations and technologies that we would like to include into our development of these resources, which we will explore in our breakout session later tonight. So stay tuned. We will soar with BlockShare. We're going to complete our technology pilots in the South Shore community, as well as develop towards an MVP candidate for the software portion of this project. We'll continue to build partnerships and networks to expand reach and expansion into other communities throughout Chicago, also supporting other efforts, local owned efforts statewide. Next slide, please. We'll fly with our consultancy. We'll continue to organically grow our consulting business through acquisitions of workers with diverse skill sets and clients with new needs, as well as we will seek billable work for all interested worker owners. Please let us know if you're interested. And of course, ascend to new heights and horizons. We're building collaborations with allied local and regional organizations, in part by supporting Chicago Co-op Convergence, among others that you will see later, as well as to deepen our work with the City of Chicago Community Wealth Building Initiative, and to deepen our partnerships with national and global connections in the cooperative and solidarity economy. And now back to Steve with more on our flock. Steve, you're muted. Steve.
You're still muted if you're talking, Steve.
I'm sorry, I was talking muted. So flock with us and let's fly together. We have lots of partners. ChiHack Night, without ChiHack Night, we would not be in existence. So ChiHack Night is really our base. We work with the Chicago Sustainability Leaders Network, the Humans United and Mutual Aid Networks, a mutual aid network effort centered in Madison, but a global concern. Our map, our Chicago Regional Cooperative map feeds find.coop, which is put on by Data Commons Cooperative. And they, at Data Commons, at find.coop, you can find co-ops all over the world. We've recently been working with worker co-ops, and the local regional version of that is the Madison Worker Co-ops, cooperatives. We've begun to host and help get off the ground Chicago Co-op Convergence, which I announce almost every week that we are meeting on the last Wednesday of every month. And we are working with the folks at Co-op Ed Center to develop new cooperatives. There are many, many acknowledgements. First of all, ChiHack Night. Deanna Franklin from Attune Designs. Our worker owners have put in hundreds and hundreds of hours over the last few years. Thousands, I would say thousands of hours over the last few years. One volunteer that's been with us off and on from almost the beginning, Cherie Lockett, is a facilitator, and she comes in and helps us facilitate our own internal meetings sometimes. And then we have volunteers on our BlockShare project, Molly Jones and Turner Zai, two CHN attendees. In the map directory project, we've got Dave Alvarado, who is an owner, but has been taking up the lead in the technical management of that project. And Davey Anyons, Jens Forsgaard, Elena Smith, Nick Howe, and Daniel Basil have all contributed to that project. So find us. keep in touch with us. We do have a pre-party for ChiCommons from 6:30 to 7 every Tuesday, where people can get together, bring their drinks and their dinner, and sort of socialize before Chi Hack Night starts. You can join the Chicago Co-op Convergence that meets on the last Wednesday of every month. And we have many volunteer opportunities and worker opportunities where if you've got specific skill sets, we can pitch those skill sets to our clients and get you work at commercial rates or near commercial rates. That's it. Thank you so much for your attention, and we'll take questions.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This is great. You've certainly been very busy. So we can go ahead and dive into some questions. I think there's actually first one from the live chat. And I think you kind of touched on this a little bit already, Steve, but Adam Heckman asks, what help do you need and how can he and others be useful to you?
Anybody want to field that question? Okay, I'll take it.
Sorry, Steve, I was muted. I wanted to field it. Sorry about that. So, hey, Adam, thanks for the question. I think where we will require a lot of help is in our projects, especially our internal projects with our BlockShare efforts, going into neighborhoods, and then also working with entities that organizationally or structurally that would help us to further define and develop those projects. I think in this time of COVID and all of the other internal and external difficulties that we face as a city and a nation, the life of a cooperative practitioner can be of great aid in alleviating some of these difficulties. And so just helping with the opportunity to bring this to a wider audience of folks, not only who are practicing the idea of cooperativeness or solidarity economy, but those who are still in the capitalist economy.
Thank you. Joe, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, I'll take the next one. Let's see. So I understand that states have different rules for recognizing and forming co-ops. How is Illinois different?
I'll take that one. Illinois has a pretty traditional cooperative law that was put into effect somewhere around the 1960s is what I recall. I'd have to check that. And that was a great law. And people from other states have told me that it's actually a pretty progressive law for cooperatives. And then in 2019, as Neural talked about and others talked about, a group of people got together and got the state to pass a Limited Worker Cooperative Association Act, which is more based on the LCC model, or LLC model, I'm sorry. That takes kind of the form that LLCs take because it's very mutable. You can change the organization. You can do a lot of fundraising, and they specifically exempted co-ops from restrictions around fundraising. So we have an opportunity to issue like preferred shares and things like that for investors. So all in all, Illinois doesn't have the most progressive, but we're kind of in the top half.
How about a follow-on question to that? So you'd mentioned, Steve, at the top of your presentation, some of the producer co-ops that exist. I'm kind of curious, what's the landscape look like? Like how many co-ops are producer co-ops? How many co-ops are like yours? Is ChiCommons sort of a typical co-op, or would you describe yourselves as sort of different than what a lot of other co-ops are?
There are so many different shapes of co-ops. Producer co-ops are the co-ops that got funded by the U.S. government. They fall, I'm not sure that you would call electrical and telephony cooperatives producer co-ops or consumer co-ops, but that was another area where the federal government funded them. But if you go out in the country and you go through a small town, you'll see a set of silos that say co-op on it. That means that those farmers have gotten together in that community and built those silos, and they all bring their grains to it and sell. And then there's a staff at the silo that sells that grain on the market, and then they get profits according to how much they contributed. They're very well funded, but not very responsive. That they fail on that cooperation amongst cooperatives principle, because the producer cooperatives tend to be in it for themselves. The food cooperatives are probably the thing that people think about, and credit unions are the co-ops that people think about when they think about cooperatives. Those are consumer cooperatives. And there are lots and lots of credit unions out there. And I would say the highest value comes from the highest monetary value comes from the producer cooperatives, but the largest scale is credit unions and food cooperatives. And then cooperatives like ourselves, the worker-owned multi-stakeholder cooperatives, they're kind of a new thing. There used to be worker collectives, and there have been from time immemorial worker collectives, but they're smaller and nobody pays as much attention to them. And they are an up and coming thing, especially we saw during the pandemic, a lot of interest in this area.
It's actually a good segue to a question I had, which is, can you talk a little bit about the process of adding an owner to your cooperative? And also, is there sort of a maximum size you can conceive of, or does, or maybe not?
Alvin, why don't you take that?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Thank you, Steve. Yes, we have a engagement, apparatus that we do. We do our skills survey, and if anyone would like to go on to our website at ChiCommons.coop, you can fill out a skills survey to begin with, and then we will bring you into a meeting and see what your availability is, what your level of skill sets are, and immediately we would want to actually have you working on a project. We want to get you involved with a particular project that we have. And then if you are interested even further than that, then we start to develop a ownership engagement opportunity for you to become either a worker owner or a consumer owner. Right now, these are the only two options that are fully developed. So the path would be to either one of those. But really, we are pushing our worker owner capacity because we want to build that capacity up in order for us to increase our amount of offerings that we have. But we do have opportunities that we're developing in the future for our producer owners and also our investor owners.
All right, thanks. Let's see, we have a question from the chat. How can a consulting co-op help provide a career path for entry or mid-level professionals?
Neural, do you want to take that one?
Hi, I can start. Yeah, this is Neural. I think the answers are many to that. There's a number of ways to do this. A lot of us, there's 8 worker owners, for instance. The shorter answer is that it can, but it may not be a traditional path. So there's an opportunity at all skill levels to do client work depending on the types of projects that we take. We have some specific needs, for instance, in accounting, user experience, graphic design specifically. but everything else is on a per project basis. So one thing you'll get as an entry-level professional is coaching and mentoring and one-on-one. But what you frankly might not get initially pending building up our book of business is to be fully utilized on a consulting project. So it might make an excellent evening type of opportunity or part-time opportunity for an entry-level person while they sort of build their portfolio and skill set. And as far as an experienced professional, what you'd get is you'd get more autonomy. You get an opportunity to actually influence the course of the business, the type of projects we take, and the skills that we bill out for.
Yeah, let me add on to that and say that in our consulting, we frequently run across demands for skill sets that we don't possess. And we have, through Hack Night and other tech organizations around Chicago, a broad list of folks that we can tap with different kinds of skills. And so we do offer subcontracting also in our consultancy. And let me add on to that and say that if you're going to be a worker in our worker co-op, we have certain expectations about you putting in time to managing the organization, and that is not paid on a per hour basis. That is paid on a dividend basis at the end of the year. How many hours you put in as a worker, then you get that percentage of dividends.
That makes sense. So kind of switching over to kind of the sort of story that Alvin, you kind of stepped through in terms of how ChiCommons formed and grew. It really does seem, at least from where I'm looking, like that you've grown quite a bit, especially in the last year. I think maybe even you mentioned that yourself, Steve. Was that in spite of the pandemic, or were there in some aspects of the sort of constraints that were placed upon all of us because of the pandemic that made some of your work easier? I'm kind of curious sort of how you thought that the conditions that we're currently under helped or hurt the growth that you saw in the last year.
I'll take that one. The pandemic was definitely a double-edged sword, so to speak. It grounded us in a lot of ways, but it also restricted us in a lot of other ways. So the way it grounded us, I think, was that it actually gave us more time. And even though we couldn't go out and actually do the work or gather together to do the work, because of the fact that the economy pretty much ground to a halt, we were able to work internally to really build the framework of what is now ChiCommons, the internal structure. And so it gave us that amount of, that time in that space and time to organize ourselves internally. And then we were able to go out and get a few clients based on the market that was being presented to us. It's hard to say whether or not we got as many clients as we could have. We probably could have gotten more clients if the economy was more open and if there wasn't the constraints that COVID presented to us. But all in all, I think that our capacity to build internally was aided by COVID. Otherwise, we probably would have grown externally a whole lot faster than we could maintain the growth internally, if that makes sense.
It also gave us a chance, because everybody went virtual, it also gave us a chance to reach out to a lot of other cooperative organizations and establish those relationships. And so we didn't have to be as geographically constrained. And as a result, we are getting cooperatives coming to us and saying, we need your services, because we're one of the relatively few worker co-ops in the US that provide technical services and business services.
Yeah, we've noticed that it's apparently a lot more common for there to be technical services co-ops in Latin America as well as in Europe, but in the US, in North America, not so much so. That's still a growing field, with a lot of upside.
That's pretty cool. Let's see, question from the chat. How are you working on traditional employee packages, insurance and vacation and all that fun stuff?
I will take that one also. Being that we are a cooperative and we are worker owned, we try our best to stray away from the employer-employee, breakdown. And so we pretty much leave that to our owners. Since we're a startup, as far as though that infrastructure for vacations and paid vacations and those types of perks, we haven't really developed the level of fiduciary baseline that would give us the affordability to be able to do that. But there are different types of perks and different types of benefits that comes out of being a worker owner or a consumer owner within the cooperative structure that you won't find in a traditional employee-employer relationship.
All right, I can do the next one. So you've mentioned a couple of times about other cooperatives, and and you actually just mentioned right now that some of them come to you and they are your clients. Yeah, can you just talk a little bit about some of the other cooperatives you work with or work for?
I guess nobody's stepping up to take that one. I will. I am on the board of Data Commons Cooperative, and we've been working with them pretty intensively as a partner. We've had we have other cooperatives that are in formation now that are coming to us. I can't reveal the names of any of those because they're still very early in their formation. And we work with incubators like Co-op Ed Center and folks like that are out there actively building cooperatives. Mike Strode is very involved with the solidarity economy and building cooperatives on the South Side. And so we exchange clients and information frequently.
Just to add to that also, we, as I was saying before, internally have been facing inward to build ourselves up, and our next, direction to take as far as that is concerned is that now that we have a firm internal structure, is to go out and look to find more cooperative opportunities with more established entities that are out there. And with that being said, we're looking to do that with our cooperative and solidarity economy map, looking at that map and seeing who's doing what and going out and engaging with them for better collaborations and cooperation opportunities.
Yeah, that sounds good. So let's see, we're getting close to time, but we may have enough for one or two more questions. So I wanted to check in, like, how's adoption going with the Wi-Fi network? And do you have any feedback from the users? Are there any things they're especially happy about or things they prefer to be a different way?
Well, actually, we haven't launched the actual pilot yet. What we're doing right now is we're getting customers together. We're also building the structure for how the engagement would work, and then how the fees and services and service level agreements would work out. And then from there, we will branch out and make contact with those clients. But as far as the reliability of the actual internet itself, it's been very reliable for all the years that we've had it going. And I must say that the products that our provider has on the market is some of the best that there is for the price.
We've been constrained a little bit because we've been very poor. Even though we have been attracting clients. Not all of them have been cooperative clients because we're offering services to the small medium enterprise market, and yet those folks have been under severe pressure too. So we haven't necessarily gotten paid for all the work that we've done. So we have outstanding bills, we have outstanding invoices out there. But as we've gotten money, we've been able to put that money towards our internal projects. If somebody had $5 million to invest, we'd establish that investor class right in a moment and be able to put fiber optic under the street in all of South Shore. And that would be a game changer. But barring that, we're going to be building from. There's a famous cooperative in Spain. It's the largest cooperative in the world. It's called Mondragon. They actually have 93 different worker cooperatives in Spain, and they do everything from white goods and like refrigerators and stoves and washing machines to technology. They have a university, and somebody wrote a book about Mondragon, and the title of the book was "We Build the Road as We Travel." And that's what cooperatives do. We build the road as we travel. And we're just at the beginning of that road now. So much is to come.
Yes, we to kind of add on to that. It's within the last month, we've turned a corner in terms of profitability. And so that's why we're focused on growth now and able to focus on growth now, because we've turned that corner, and some of our smaller clients have caught up on their invoices, and so we're able to launch out and start to grow in the ways that we determined that we needed to. And so, and as we do that, we'll be able to focus more on our capital intensive projects like BlockShare.
All right. Well, I think that might be our note to end on here since we're just at time. But really, thank you all for sharing all the amazing work you've been doing. It's really inspirational to hear about what ChiCommons has been able to achieve in the last couple of years. Everyone can see you got links here if anyone wants to learn more about ChiCommons. It's chicommons.coop. I think we shared a link to that in the live chat as well. So we're going to switch gears over to the post-presentation Zoom call. We'll drop a link to that in the chat as well. But I think that's probably it, right, Joel? Anything else?
Yeah, that is it. I just made an attempt to share the link in the chat, but hopefully it's in there. Let me know if you can't see it. Don't want to drop off until the link is ready. But all right.
Yeah, I'll drop it in there too to make sure.
Thanks. Yeah, I think sometimes you can't share a link in the YouTube chat.
Yeah,
but anyway.
All right, folks. Well, thanks again. And I think we all want to do our slogan all together. If everyone wants to come off mute,
yeah,
we'll do it on 3. 1, 2, 3. Go for it.
And
And
All right. Thanks, everyone.